Okay, welcome to Asevoxel. Here I'm going to show you everything that you can do with the application, how to model, how to export, how to create animations, how to light and shade your model, how to do basically everything you can during this version. Now, first, let's talk about models. How do models work? First, I'm going to turn off all the layers, and here's the nose, eyebrows, mouth, forehead, rest of forehead, eyes, rest of eyebrows, rest of beard, and so forth. You go adding little parts of the model. I didn't model this in this method, like layer by layer. I actually based this on this model, and I based this model on these drawings that I made. I took this side profile and this front view, and I said, okay, let's make something. So for example, let's copy this, do new, paste it. Okay, what can I do now? First, we're going to trim it. Then we're going to select this one, and we're going to keep its width, which is 11, in mind. Now let's go to Asevoxel. This, of course, is a single layer model, so it won't do much of anything. But you can go to the Modeler tab and use one of my favorite tools, Rotate Model 90 degrees. Now what does this do? It rotates the model 90 degrees, but transforms the model. It's not just this kind of rotation. It's this kind of rotation. Now the model is like this, and each one of these is one layer, another layer, another layer, another layer, another layer, for a total of 14 layers. Now, remember that number we had in our mind? Okay, let's, for the sake of comfort, rotate it so that it's facing us. And now, canvas size 9, 10, 11. Did we say 11? Yeah, right, 11. Okay. Now we paste our head. And now we have a basic kind of view of what our model should look like from one side and from the other. And now we can start moving it back and applying an intersection between all of these pixels and all of these pixels to make voxels. That is the way I made this model. As you can see, from the side it looks like the side view, and from the front it looks like the front view. This took me, let's say, about 3 hours. Not a lot, not too little, but so that you know how much you really have for time. Another model tool is the layer scroll mode. You can use layer scroll mode. I'm going to show it with this Alfredo model. Now, the scroll wheel allows you to move through the model. You can have layers rendered behind the current layer, which is always shown here, or layers in front of the current layer, which are always shown here. For example, now we're seeing this layer, but it's rendering the one in front, which was the nose. Now, if we put that one behind and one in front, we're looking at this layer, but we're rendering the one in front and the one behind. One in front, one behind. And we can scroll through the entire model like that. Okay, that is modeling. You have these tools that allow you to rotate the model and this tool that allows you to move through this model slowly. For example, here, let's say I want to change the color of the eyes. Okay, there, I changed the color of the eyes. And this we can undo with Control C. There you go. Disable layer scroll mode. Now, an important thing to notice and to have as a warning is that if you're on scroll mode and you rotate, strange things happen. Because of a memory issue, I do not have done the flashing of the memory, and so it breaks the model. But we can undo this with Control C. So you should never rotate while layer scroll mode is on. You should always rotate when layer scroll mode is off. Here we can see the profile. We can see that I have some remaining voxels that are redundant because they are covered. They are inside the model, so they are never seen. And that's a way that you can help with redundancy and voxel model size. Okay, let's move on to the export. Or actually, let's rotate this back to how it was and go to export. From the current position and the current scale, which is 400%, we can change the scale with the mouse wheel. That is 50%, 75, 100, 125, 150. It goes up by 25 each time. If we export it, it says the current position, current rotation, lets you choose a rotation axis, which we will see later, amount of steps, which is the amount of frames the animation will have, the start angle, and the finish angle, and the span actually. So for example, if we go to 270 and do a span of 180, for the animation it takes a little while. It's going to rotate from 270y from this 180. As you can see, it's 180 difference. Now let's close. Let's close and go back to this. You can create an animation with all of these axes, all of these steps, although I don't recommend the later ones because they take a very long time to calculate. And you can choose the start angle on this coordinate system, always remember, and the span in this coordinate system. Now let's see rotations. What are those coordinate systems I talked about? Now, first thing that you should check out and notice about the controls dialog is that we have quick buttons. So for example, front view, top view, side view, isometric view. We're going to stick with front for now. Euler angles rotate the model the most complicated way. What do you use it for? You use them for example, let's say you have a rotation written down and you want to return to that rotation. We go x 360, which is actually 0, y 301, which is there, and z 357. There you go. As you remember, this was the rotation we had before. Now, when does this update? When you rotate with the mouse. So, pressing front, top, side, or ISO, don't update this, but do update this. For example, top, side, and ISO. Update the Euler angle controls. Now, what do the Euler angle controls axes mean? You shouldn't care about that. Why? Because it's pretty arbitrary. For example, there it's rotating pretty clearly, but once I go into C, Y rotates diagonally, which is very strange. And you say, does not make a lot of sense. It doesn't. Why? Because this is in a strange coordinate system that I made to rotate the model in like under the hood. So this is not so useful for intuitive rotation. It's more useful for going back to a previous rotation you had and starting again from there. Now let's go front. Absolute rotation. This is pretty useful and pretty intuitive. What does X mean? X means always with a cube you will rotate it this way. So front, bottom, back, top. It always rotates in that axis. Y rotates always front, left, back, right, front. So Y rotates like that. And now C. C rotates top, left, bottom, right. Always in that way. Now let's return to front and do relative rotation. The relative rotation axes are called pitch for X, yaw for Y, and roll for C. Now these ones always apply the same way. That is what you should take home. They always apply the same way, so no matter what rotation this is in, this will always look like the same type of rotation. For example, let's go to a random rotation like that. Pitch always moves it up and down based on that rotation. Let's leave it there. Yaw always moves it left and right depending on that rotation. And roll always counterclockwise or clockwise depending on what rotation you have. So these are called camera relative because they are always relative to the camera. So for example, pitch rotates a cylinder like this, yaw rotates a cylinder like this, and roll rotates a cylinder like this. That's basically the most simple explanation I can give for how they work. When you click with middle click and drag the model, you are actually using pitch and yaw. Now, scale controls. Here you can also control the scale, which a scale of 100% means that for every voxel there is 1 pixel. A scale of 150 means that for every voxel there is 1.5 pixels. 200, 2 pixels, 2.5, etc. As you can see, earlier we had 375%, and here I can go from 300 to 350, and from 350 to 400. Where is 375? That you achieve by using the scroll wheel in the preview. So in the preview it moves by 25% each time, but in the slider it moves by 50% each time. Something to take into account. I'm going to leave it at, I don't know, 400%. It's pretty good. And now that we have seen export, modeler, and rotations, we're going to check out lighting. The default lighting is basic. As you can see, It's pretty basic. It's lit from the front. It does a weird calculation with normals that I'm not going to explain, but it's pretty basic. It's good for modeling, it's good for previewing, it's good for usage of the application, not so much for exporting. Now, dynamic is a little bit more in depth. Dynamic, you have actually directional light. So these are the pitch and yaw of the light direction. How do you see the light direction? We can have preview light direction, and there you go. This is a cone. Why does it look like a circle? Because it's a cone head-on. But if we rotate it with the middle click, you can see that it is a cone and that it lights the model from that direction. You can even move it behind the model, but it won't do much of anything. To stop seeing the cone, you can go there. I actually like to put this around 35. That is a good angle. And the rest of the controls are these. Diffuse. Less bright, more bright. But that's not the actual use of diffuse. That's only what diffuse does if diameter is 100%. If diameter is, for example, 50%, you will see that there is now only a spot. What does diffuse do? Diffuse blurs the edges of the circle. So for example, if we put diffuse at 0, there's no diffusion. All of the edges look at the same exact color. We diffuse a little bit, we diffuse a little bit, we diffuse a little bit. It looks more and more round. There you go. Finally, diameter can go from 0 to 100. 100 is the full model. That is pathetic, but it is lighting. And ambient. Ambient is how bright the unshaded part of the model is. So for example, if we put it at 80%, you'll see that it is brighter. If we put it at 100%, it is pretty bright. We can change the light color. I'm going to increase the diameter and put some pink light, or slightly less pink light, or for example a warm light, kind of orangish. No, orangish. Let's go here. There you go. That's a warm sunset type of light. Here alpha doesn't do anything, but alpha will be important for the final rotation mode. Oh, and I was forgetting, rim lighting. Rim lighting lights with the color of the light. You have the absolute edges of the image. Why? Because rim lighting works like this. As the face approaches being no longer visible, light bounces from it a lot more directly. So for example, that is without rim lighting, that is with rim lighting. That is basically everything that you have in the dynamic mode. And finally, the effect stack. For the effect stack, I'm actually going to go to this model, this crate, and we're going to go explain ISO mode. ISO mode always takes either the top or the bottom face and colors it with top. Then of the remaining two faces that are visible, it colors the left one left and the right one right. So, for example, let's do this. I need to put it in literal. There you go. Now, this is not good for animations because, as you can see, it jumps. But it is good for still images and very stylized images, like the one you are seeing of the crate here. It's very stylized. We can have literal or alpha mode. alpha mode ignores completely the color, and if you have a lower alpha, it will put a lower, darker color, because lower alpha means there is less light, so it is darker. If you put tint on, it actually tints the different faces, the colors that you chose. For example, let's choose big purple color, about that way. Now the top is that color. Let's choose a greenish color. Now it's that color. Now let's choose a bluish color. And now that's the color for the left face. You also have material mode, which I will show with the Asevoxel model, which is, for example, you only want, I don't know, this material, the part of the skin, to look shaded. So you select the color and only that part gets shaded. You see, this might not be so useful, except that you can add modules, and you can have the same module apply for the head, hair. Or have it non-tinted, have it only apply the alphas. Or have it both non-tinted and only apply the alphas. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to eliminate this module, and now we're going to check face shade. Face shade works pretty much the same way. It is in alpha mode, so it takes the alpha. This is 255, 180, 210, 230, 255, 220. So it paints all 6 faces differently. It shades them differently based on the alpha of each of one of these 6 selected colors. A very important distinction that I have to make: if we tint it, it's going to go all white. It should go all white. It's not doing it. That's right. It needs to go to literal. But if we choose different colors while tinting, it will paint those ones. For example, the left side yellow, the top and bottom are mixed, they are swapped. Don't ask me why. I actually do know why they are swapped, but just deal with it. Bottom is top, top is bottom. They are tinted like that. Back then they didn't tint a couple of seconds ago because I was using white light on every single one of these. I was using the defaults. And if you tint with white, nothing happens because it's just pure light. Now, we also have material mode for this. For example, we only want to apply it to this color. It only applies it to that color. And we can also apply tint to just that material. Literal works the same as ISO. It takes the literal values of the colors. It doesn't tint, it paints. Now, let's say we want to use the very stylized crate from before. How do we do that? This looks like nothing because it's on material mode. There you go. This is very stylized, but let's say we want to make it even more stylized, like it was before. We can choose these, go to info, open controls dialog, front, and rotate it, and now we have the same image we had before with the ISO mode, but because it's face shade mode and it lights directly the faces, it doesn't do any calculation, it lights the faces directly, it doesn't snap when you rotate it. So for example, you can actually faithfully info controls dialog ISO, export it as an animation like this. Wait a second. There you go. Now it looks stylized and it can be exported. Don't save. Here I have some other models that I want to show you. Effects, dynamic. White light. From the top. And let's rotate this like this. And now let's reduce the scale to 200% or 100%. Export, create animation, create animation. And now, for example, I can do something fancy like taking this color and Shift O, putting an outline below it, and now filling the background and a new layer, new layer, move it down, pixels, and there we have a nice little animation. If you ever want to have your model completely unshaded, what you can do is go to Effects, Stack, open Effects Stack, and delete all the modules. And there it goes, completely unshaded. No shading is being applied. And that's pretty much everything you can do with Asevoxel. Here are some other models that I've made. A Rubik's Cube, the crate, Asevoxel bald, and Asevoxel with hair. I hope you enjoy using this extension. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Asevoxel tutorials or tutorials for the future updates, and please check out the itch.io page.